What if one of the most powerful ways to calm pain and inflammation wasn't something you swallowed, but something you applied directly to your skin before bed? Most people think pain begins in the joints, or the muscles, or the nerves. But here's what's really going on inside your body. Pain is often the final signal of a much deeper inflammatory process, one involving your immune system, blood vessels, stress hormones, sleep cycles, and even the health of your skin barrier itself. And that changes how we should think about relief. Because your skin is not just a protective covering, it's a biologically active organ. In fact, it's your largest organ. It communicates with your immune system constantly. It absorbs compounds, it regulates inflammation. It even helps control temperature, circulation, and stress responses. So when certain oils are applied correctly, especially at night, something fascinating can happen. You may improve blood flow. You may reduce inflammatory signaling. You may calm overactive pain receptors. And in some cases, you may actually help your body repair itself while you sleep. Now, this is where many people get confused. They assume all oils are the same. They hear natural remedy and immediately think it's either magic or meaningless. But the science tells a much more interesting story. Certain oils contain bioactive compounds, things like menthol, terpenes, gingerols, omega fatty acids, and anti-inflammatory polyphenols that interact directly with your skin, your nerves, and your inflammatory pathways. Some even influence mechanisms like NF-κB, which acts almost like a master switch for inflammation inside the body. Recent research has shown that topical oils containing menthol and plant compounds may reduce inflammatory activity and pain signaling through these pathways. And nighttime matters, because during sleep, your body shifts into repair mode. Growth hormone rises, recovery increases, blood flow patterns change, the nervous system becomes more parasympathetic, more restorative. So what you apply to your skin before bed may have a very different effect than what you use during the day. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of inflammation like a fire alarm system in a building. Pain is the alarm sound you hear. Most treatments only try to silence the alarm temporarily. But the better strategy is to cool down the actual fire, the inflammatory environment driving the signal in the first place. That's where topical oils become interesting. Not because they cure everything, but because they may help regulate the environment underneath the pain. In today's video, we're going to break down exactly what happens when you rub certain oils onto your skin at night, and which oils actually have scientific evidence behind them. We'll talk about how skin absorption really works, why some oils reduce inflammation while others irritate it, the surprising connection between chronic pain and sleep quality, how menthol, ginger, magnesium, and essential oils affect nerves and circulation, why your skin barrier is more important than most people realize, and the exact nighttime protocol that may help support recovery naturally. And one more important thing, this is not about replacing medical care. Severe or persistent pain always deserves proper evaluation. But if your goal is to support your body naturally, reduce unnecessary inflammatory stress, and improve recovery, there are mechanisms here worth understanding. Because sometimes the smallest nightly habit, repeated consistently, can change how your body feels every morning. The first thing we need to understand is this: your skin is not a wall, it's a filter, and that changes everything about how topical oils work. Most people imagine the skin like plastic wrap, something completely sealed off from the outside world. But biologically, your skin is much more dynamic than that. It's made of multiple layers, tiny blood vessels, immune cells, nerve endings, and microscopic channels that allow certain compounds to pass through. Now, not everything gets absorbed equally. Large molecules struggle to penetrate. Water-based compounds often evaporate quickly. But certain oil-soluble compounds can move through the outer skin barrier much more effectively, especially when combined with warmth, massage, and nighttime physiology. Here's what's really happening inside your body. The outer layer of your skin, called the stratum corneum, acts like a brick wall. The skin cells are the bricks. Natural fats and lipids are the mortar holding them together. When you apply the right oil, especially oils rich in fatty acids or anti-inflammatory plant compounds, you're not just moisturizing, you're interacting with that lipid barrier itself. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your skin barrier as dry soil with cracks in it. When the barrier becomes damaged from stress, aging, poor nutrition, overwashing, or inflammation, those cracks allow more irritation and inflammatory signaling to occur. The skin becomes more reactive. Nerves become more sensitive, pain perception can increase. Certain oils help re-water that soil. They reinforce the barrier, reduce water loss, calm immune activity, and sometimes help regulate inflammatory messengers underneath the surface. This is especially important as we age, because aging skin naturally loses lipids, collagen, and moisture. Blood circulation decreases, repair slows down, inflammatory compounds accumulate more easily. This is one reason older adults often experience more joint stiffness, tenderness, and skin sensitivity at night and in the morning. Now, here's something fascinating. Research shows that some plant oils contain bioactive compounds capable of influencing inflammatory pathways directly. Oils rich in compounds like oleocanthal, terpenes, and omega fatty acids may help reduce oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling in the tissues. Studies on essential oils like lavender and peppermint have also shown measurable effects on pain perception and muscle relaxation in some individuals. But there's another layer most people miss. Touch itself changes physiology. When you slowly massage oil into the skin before bed, you stimulate mechanoreceptors, tiny sensory nerves that communicate with the brain. This can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and repair side of your nervous system. Heart rate slows, muscle tension decreases, stress hormones may begin to drop. And this matters because chronic pain is not only mechanical, it's neurological. The brain amplifies pain signals under stress. High cortisol levels, poor sleep, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, all of these increase pain sensitivity. Inflammation essentially turns up the volume on your nervous system. This is why two people can have similar joint damage but completely different pain experiences. One nervous system is calm, the other is inflamed and hyperreactive. Now, let's talk specifically about one of the most studied topical compounds, menthol. Menthol, commonly found in peppermint oil, activates cold-sensitive receptors in the skin called TRPM8 receptors. This creates a cooling sensation, but it also interferes with how pain signals travel to the brain. In simple terms, it changes the nerve conversation. That cooling effect is not just psychological. It alters sensory signaling pathways involved in discomfort perception. Some studies suggest menthol may also help increase local circulation and reduce inflammatory discomfort in muscles and joints. But here's the critical point. More is not better. Many commercial products overload the skin with synthetic fragrances, alcohols, and irritating chemicals. Instead of calming inflammation, they damage the skin barrier over time. And when the skin barrier becomes compromised, inflammation often increases, not decreases. So the quality of the oil matters enormously. Generally, the most skin-supportive oils are minimally processed and rich in anti-inflammatory fats. Examples include extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, jojoba oil, arnica-infused oil, ginger oil blends, magnesium oils for muscle relaxation, diluted peppermint or lavender essential oils, but dilution is important. Essential oils are highly concentrated and should almost never be applied directly to the skin, undiluted. A good rule is 2-3 drops of essential oil mixed into a tablespoon of carrier oil. Now, timing also matters. At night, your skin permeability changes slightly, body temperature shifts, blood flow patterns change. Transepidermal water loss increases during sleep, which means your skin may absorb and retain certain compounds differently overnight. And remember, nighttime is when your body performs most of its repair work. So instead of fighting against your biology, you're working with it. You're supporting circulation, supporting the skin barrier, supporting nervous system recovery, and potentially reducing the inflammatory burden contributing to pain in the first place. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Every week, we break down the science of inflammation, metabolism, longevity, and natural recovery in a way that's practical and easy to apply in real life. One of the biggest misunderstandings about pain is that people think inflammation is always bad. It's not. Inflammation is actually one of your body's most important survival tools. If you cut your finger, inflammation brings immune cells to repair tissue. If you exercise intensely, inflammation helps rebuild muscle. If you fight an infection, inflammation helps protect you. The problem is not inflammation itself. The problem is when inflammation never turns off. That's what happens in many forms of chronic pain: arthritis, muscle stiffness, neuropathy, tendon irritation, even chronic back pain. In many cases, the body becomes trapped in a low-grade inflammatory state where the immune system keeps sending distress signals long after the original trigger should have resolved. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your immune system communicates through chemical messengers called cytokines. Some cytokines increase inflammation, others help calm it down. Think of them like text messages between immune cells. Now imagine your body constantly receiving danger messages all day long. Poor sleep, high blood sugar, stress hormones, processed foods, lack of movement, aging tissues, oxidative stress. Over time, this creates what scientists sometimes call inflammaging, a persistent background level of inflammation associated with aging and chronic disease. And here's where certain oils become biologically interesting. Some plant oils contain compounds that may influence these inflammatory signaling pathways directly. For example, extra virgin olive oil contains a natural compound called oleocanthal. What makes oleocanthal fascinating is that it behaves somewhat similarly to mild anti-inflammatory medication. By influencing cyclooxygenase pathways, the same pathways involved in pain and inflammation signaling. Now, olive oil is not a drug, and I want to be very clear about that. But the mechanism matters because it helps explain why certain traditional remedies have persisted for generations. Researchers have found that oleocanthal may help reduce inflammatory activity and oxidative stress in tissues. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine inflammation like rust forming on metal. A little rust can be cleaned, but if the rusting process continues every day, the structure weakens over time. Oxidative stress works similarly inside the body. Free radicals damage tissues. Inflammation increases. Cells become more reactive. Pain pathways become more sensitive. Certain oils contain antioxidant compounds that may help slow some of this rusting process. Now, another oil that deserves attention is ginger oil. Ginger contains bioactive compounds called gingerols and chogols, which have been studied for their anti-inflammatory and circulation supportive properties. What's interesting is that ginger appears to affect multiple inflammatory pathways at once, not just one. Some research suggests ginger compounds may help modulate inflammatory cytokines and improve circulation in tissues. Better circulation means better oxygen delivery, better nutrient transport, and potentially better removal of inflammatory waste products. This becomes especially important for people who wake up stiff in the morning, because stiffness is often a circulation problem as much as a structural problem. At night, blood flow naturally slows during long periods of stillness. Joints can feel tighter, fluid movement decreases. Inflammatory compounds may accumulate around irritated tissues. Gentle massage with warming oils may help counter some of this, not by curing the joint, but by improving the environment around the joint. And the nervous system responds to that environment constantly. Now let's talk about lavender oil for a moment, because its effects go beyond relaxation. Lavender contains compounds like lineol and lineol acetate, which have been studied for effects on anxiety, stress signaling, and sleep quality. Some studies suggest lavender aromatherapy and topical application may reduce perceived pain intensity and improve sleep in people with chronic discomfort conditions. And this connection matters deeply because poor sleep amplifies inflammation dramatically. In fact, just one night of poor sleep can increase inflammatory cytokines and worsen insulin sensitivity the next day. This creates a vicious cycle. Pain disrupts sleep. Poor sleep increases inflammation. Inflammation increases pain, and around it goes. That's why nighttime routines are powerful. Not because they're trendy, because they influence physiology. When you combine warmth massage, anti-inflammatory compounds, parasympathetic nervous system activation, better sleep quality, you may begin interrupting that inflammatory cycle from multiple angles simultaneously. Now, there's another important factor most people overlook, the lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system acts like a drainage network for inflammatory waste products and immune activity. Unlike blood circulation, the lymphatic system has no central pump. It depends heavily on movement, breathing, and muscle activity. Gentle massage before bed may help stimulate lymphatic flow, especially around swollen or stiff areas. Again, this is not magic. It's mechanics. You're helping the body move fluid, move inflammatory compounds, move circulation. And small improvements repeated consistently can create meaningful changes over time. Because healing is often less about one massive intervention and more about reducing inflammatory burden day after day after day. Now, we need to talk about something most people completely overlook when it comes to pain and inflammation, your nervous system. Because pain is not just happening in your muscles or joints, pain is interpreted in your brain. And that means your stress levels, sleep quality, emotional state, blood sugar stability, and even your breathing patterns can change how much pain you feel. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your nervous system has two major modes. One is sympathetic dominance, often called fight or flight. The other is parasympathetic dominance, the rest, repair, and recover state. When you stay stuck in sympathetic mode for too long, your body becomes hyper alert. Cortisol stays elevated, muscles stay tighter, inflammatory signaling increases, pain sensitivity rises. It's almost like your nervous system turns the volume knob up on discomfort. This is why chronic stress often shows up physically. Tight shoulders, neck pain, jaw tension, lower back stiffness, migraines, poor sleep, digestive problems. The body and nervous system are deeply connected. Now let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your nervous system like a car alarm. In a healthy system, the alarm activates only when there's a real threat. But under chronic stress and inflammation, the alarm becomes overly sensitive. A small bump triggers a huge response. That's what happens with chronic pain syndromes. The nervous system becomes sensitized. Nerves fire more easily. The brain interprets normal sensations as threatening. And this is where nighttime oil application becomes more powerful than most people realize, because the process itself may help calm the nervous system. The warmth of touch, the rhythmic massage, the scent molecules reaching the brain, the slowing of breathing, the ritual of safety before sleep. All of these signals communicate one message to the nervous system. You are safe enough to repair. Now scientifically, this involves several mechanisms. Massage and skin stimulation activate pressure receptors that can help reduce sympathetic nervous system activity. Some studies show massage may lower cortisol levels while increasing parasympathetic activity. And when cortisol stays chronically elevated, inflammation often worsens. This is especially important because cortisol and insulin are closely connected. High stress often drives blood sugar instability, increased abdominal fat, poor sleep quality, higher inflammatory activity, and inflammation itself sensitizes pain pathways. So if someone says, "My pain gets worse when I'm stressed," that is not imaginary, that is physiology. Now let's talk about magnesium oil, because this is one of the most interesting nighttime tools for muscle tension and recovery. Technically, magnesium oil isn't actually an oil. It's usually magnesium chloride dissolved in water, creating a slippery texture. Magnesium plays a critical role in muscle relaxation, nerve signaling, sleep quality, energy production, blood sugar regulation, and many adults are chronically low in magnesium due to stress, processed foods, poor soil quality, and certain medications. Low magnesium levels are associated with muscle cramps, tension, poor sleep, headaches, increased stress sensitivity. Now, the evidence on transdermal magnesium absorption is still mixed scientifically. Some studies suggest modest absorption through the skin, while others argue the primary benefits may come more from relaxation and local effects rather than major systemic absorption. But clinically, many people report improvements in muscle tightness and sleep quality when using magnesium oil before bed. And whether part of that effect comes from nervous system relaxation, muscle signaling, improved bedtime routines, or local tissue effects, the outcome may still matter, because the body responds to patterns. Now, another fascinating mechanism involves scent and the limbic system. Essential oils like lavender interact with smell receptors connected directly to emotional and memory centers in the brain. This is why certain smells instantly change your emotional state. The limbic system influences stress hormones, heart rate, sleep readiness, emotional processing, pain perception. Some research suggests lavender aromatherapy may improve sleep quality and reduce anxiety-related physiological stress responses. And better sleep changes inflammation dramatically. During deep sleep, growth hormone increases tissue repair, accelerates, immune regulation improves, inflammatory balance becomes more controlled. Poor sleep, on the other hand, acts almost like pouring gasoline onto inflammatory pathways. Now here's a practical nighttime protocol that combines these concepts. About 30 minutes before bed, dim bright lights, avoid stressful media. Warm the hands slightly, apply a small amount of oil to painful or tense areas, massage slowly for 3-5 minutes. Focus on slow nasal breathing during the process. This is important. Do not rush it, because the goal is not just chemical absorption. The goal is nervous system signaling. You are teaching the body to shift from stress mode into repair mode, and consistency matters more than intensity. 5 calm minutes every night may do more for long-term inflammation than occasional aggressive treatments that shock the system. If this is helping you understand your body differently, consider subscribing. Every day, we explore practical science-backed strategies to improve inflammation, energy, metabolism, and healthy aging naturally, one simple habit at a time. Now, there's an important distinction we need to make, because not all oils reduce inflammation, some actually increase it. And this is one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying natural remedies for pain. They focus only on the ingredient instead of the inflammatory environment they're creating on the skin itself. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your skin barrier is part of your immune system. When that barrier becomes damaged, irritated, or chronically inflamed, the immune system reacts almost immediately. Inflammatory compounds increase, histamine signaling may rise, nerve endings become more sensitive, the skin loses moisture more easily, and pain perception can actually worsen. This is why some people apply strong topical products and initially feel relief, but over time develop more irritation, burning, dryness, or sensitivity. They are overactivating the tissue instead of calming it. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your skin like the protective coating on electrical wiring. If the coating is healthy, signals travel normally. But if the coating becomes damaged, the wires become exposed and hypersensitive. That's similar to what happens when the skin barrier is compromised. The nerves underneath become more reactive. Small irritations feel larger. Inflammatory signaling increases, and aging makes this even more important. As we get older, natural oil production decreases, skin becomes thinner, collagen declines, water retention weakens, repair slows down. This means older skin is more vulnerable to inflammatory irritation from harsh products. Now, here's where many commercial pain products become problematic. A large number contain synthetic fragrance chemicals, drying alcohols, artificial preservatives, petroleum-derived compounds, excessively concentrated cooling agents. Some of these ingredients create intense sensory stimulation, that icy, hot feeling people associate with working. But sensation is not the same thing as healing. Sometimes the product is simply overwhelming the nerve endings temporarily. And if used excessively, chronic irritation can worsen the inflammatory environment over time. Now compare that with oils that support the skin barrier itself. For example, jojoba oil is structurally similar to human sebum, the natural oil your skin produces. This allows it to support hydration without heavily clogging pores. Coconut oil contains medium-chain fatty acids with antimicrobial properties and may help reduce water loss from the skin. Extra virgin olive oil contains antioxidant polyphenols that may help combat oxidative stress. And certain infused oils like arnica have been traditionally used to support bruising, soreness, and tissue recovery. Now, I want to pause here and clarify something important. Natural does not automatically mean safe. Essential oils are highly concentrated plant chemicals. Some can cause allergic reactions, burns, or irritation if used improperly. Peppermint oil, cinnamon oil, oregano oil, and tea tree oil can be especially irritating in high concentrations. This is why dilution matters enormously. A good starting rule: 1 tablespoon carrier oil, 2 to 3 drops essential oil. That's enough. More concentration does not necessarily mean more benefit. In fact, excessive stimulation may activate inflammatory responses instead of calming them. Now, another overlooked factor is heat. Many people apply oils and immediately cover the area with heating pads or very hot compresses. But excessive heat can increase inflammation in certain conditions, especially acute injuries, swelling, or irritated nerves. There's a difference between gentle warmth and aggressive heat exposure. Gentle warmth improves circulation. Extreme heat may aggravate tissue irritation. Your body responds best to balance. Now let's talk about one of the most underestimated drivers of chronic inflammation: blood sugar instability. Because this connection surprises many people, when glucose levels stay chronically elevated, proteins inside the body undergo a process called glycation. This contributes to oxidative stress, tissue stiffness, vascular damage, and inflammatory signaling. Over time, elevated insulin and blood sugar can worsen joint discomfort, nerve irritation, circulation problems, recovery capacity. This is one reason metabolic dysfunction and chronic pain are so closely linked. People often separate the two, but biologically they're deeply connected. Inflammation increases insulin resistance. Insulin resistance increases inflammation, and the cycle continues. This means topical strategies work best when combined with internal anti-inflammatory habits, stable blood sugar, high-quality sleep, strength training, omega-3 rich foods, stress reduction, proper hydration, Protein intake to support tissue repair. Think of topical oils as part of the strategy, not the entire strategy. Because if the internal inflammatory environment remains out of control, external treatments can only do so much. Now, here's something fascinating researchers are beginning to appreciate more deeply. The skin itself has its own circadian rhythm. Skin repair activity changes across the day and night cycle. At night, skin blood flow, repair processes, and permeability shift. This may partly explain why nighttime skincare and topical recovery routines can feel more effective for some people. Again, your body is designed around rhythms, and when you align your habits with those rhythms, recovery often becomes easier. Instead of constantly forcing the body, you begin cooperating with its biology. That's a completely different approach to healing. Now, we need to talk about circulation, because many people think pain is simply about wear and tear. But in reality, poor circulation is often one of the hidden drivers behind chronic stiffness, inflammation, slow recovery, and even nerve discomfort. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every tissue in your body depends on circulation. Blood delivers oxygen, nutrients, hormones, immune signals, repair compounds, and at the same time, circulation removes metabolic waste, inflammatory byproducts, excess fluid, oxidative compounds. When circulation becomes sluggish, tissues become stressed. Now think about what happens during long periods of sitting, stress, aging, poor sleep, insulin resistance, or inactivity. Blood vessels become less flexible, nitric oxide production decreases, inflammation rises, fluid movement slows. Over time, tissues essentially become undernourished and overburdened. That creates an environment where pain thrives. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a city where garbage trucks stop moving efficiently. Trash begins accumulating on the streets, deliveries arrive late, traffic slows down, the whole system becomes inflamed and dysfunctional. That's similar to what poor circulation does inside tissues. And this becomes especially noticeable at night and in the morning. Why? Because during sleep, you're not moving much. Muscle contractions decrease, blood flow slows in certain areas, joint fluid movement changes. If circulation is already compromised, stiffness and inflammatory discomfort can become much more noticeable after hours of stillness. This is why some people wake up feeling tight, achy, swollen, heavy, stiff in the hands, knees, hips, or back. Now, certain oils may support circulation locally through multiple mechanisms. Peppermint oil creates cooling sensations that may stimulate blood flow responses. Ginger oil creates gentle warming effects that may help circulation and muscle relaxation. Rosemary oil has been studied for possible effects on circulation and oxidative stress. And massage itself mechanically improves local blood movement and lymphatic drainage. Again, the mechanism matters. You are not fixing the tissue instantly. You are improving the environment around the tissue, and healing depends heavily on environment. Now let's talk about nitric oxide for a moment, because this molecule is critically important for circulation. Nitric oxide acts like a signal that tells blood vessels to relax and widen. Better vessel flexibility means improved blood flow and oxygen delivery. But chronic inflammation, smoking, poor diet, stress, high blood sugar, and aging can reduce nitric oxide production.